Thank you for joining Quick Tips for Nonprofits. Today's Quick Tip will cover some common red flags for 501c3 public charities. Community Law Center is a legal services provider for nonprofit organizations and community organizations throughout Maryland. Community Law Center can help nonprofits with a variety of legal issues such as formation, necessary filings, and governance for boards, to many other issues involving property, zoning, contracts, employment, nuisance issues, liquor board matters, and intellectual property. Today's quick tip is just for informational purposes and should not be construed as legal advice, which really should be tailored to your organization. If you wish to become a client of the Community Law Center, your organization can submit a simple application. When we think about a 501c3 public charity, it's helpful to really consider those two words, public and charity. It's public for at least a couple reasons. There's a requirement that you're financially supported by public sources, and the second reason is more of our focus today, which is that you're operating for the public good. This often plays out in your expenditures. For the word charity, remember that in exchange for exemption from paying corporate taxes and for allowing donations to you to be tax deductible for the donors, your purposes had to fall into categories that were exempt purposes. For most public charities, that's generally charitable, educational, or both. Organizations must primarily be engaged in activities that support these charitable purposes. Specifically for 501c3s, the IRS also restricts political activity. First, 501c3s are strictly prohibited from supporting or opposing any candidate for election on any level, local, state, or federal. You must be very careful to maintain no bias. For lobbying, which is our second piece, the limitation is less strict, but you may not focus on supporting or opposing legislation with a significant portion of your time and money. If you do happen to become heavily involved one year, you are actually required to file a form disclosing your activity to the IRS. To illustrate the concept of expenditures for the public good, let's see a couple examples of red flag situations that may come up. And it's helpful as we look at this to ask who benefits in these situations. In our first scenario, say that your organization donates $500 to the Smith family whose house was flooded last week. This may seem charitable, so some people may be confused that this would be a red flag. Say that the Smith family is just in the community and not related to anyone on the board. But this does actually raise a red flag because of the requirement about benefiting the public. In our second scenario, say that your organization holds an event and the main vendor is a company owned by the sister of someone on your board. This is a conflict of interest issue. Because public trust is such an important element for public charities, identifying and properly dealing with conflicts of interest are critically important. And sometimes the board may choose to avoid even the appearance of improper benefit. So in the second situation, this could be permissible, but only if you make sure that the proper process was followed beforehand, which allowed the board to independently decide that hiring this vendor was in the best interest of this organization, even if this vendor had that relationship with a board member. As a board, you really do need to have a conflict of interest policy in place that each board member is very aware of and agrees to follow, and we can help you with this. It's helpful to keep in mind that money that goes into a 501c3 must always stay in a 501c3 or government to be expended for the public good. There's even a clause on this covering a dissolution situation in your organizing documents. So your 501c3 nonprofit may not designate specified individuals to receive funds. But if those funds are made available to the whole community, such as by meeting a set of criteria and applying for it, such as maybe an annual scholarship fund that's given to graduating high school seniors that they could apply for, this could be okay. We mentioned the need for proper procedures in some situations. Conflicts of interest for anyone in a position of influence or control in your organization must be disclosed, and they must be resolved in the way that we talked about. Also, if you decide to hire employees, you must first follow a proper procedure to set reasonable salaries that are based on market rate compensation for similar positions. In some cases, the IRS can impose penalties for what are called excess benefit transactions. So financial benefits to individuals can really be scrutinized. Next, let's look at three examples of red flag situations regarding your activities. First, say that your organization had a great fundraising event selling hats, and say that selling hats really doesn't have anything to do with your organization's mission. But then the board decided to sell hats every month. This can raise a red flag if this activity takes significant time and resources when compared to your actual charitable work. Remember that you may not significantly be involved in activities that fall outside your exempt purposes. Not only that, but actually unrelated business income is most likely subject to taxes if it's for an amount of over $1,000 in one tax year. So that's just something also to be aware of. For the second flag, say that there is a bill that your organization decides to support, and you spend significant time and expenses to raise awareness of the bill and lobby for it. Remember the requirement that only a limited amount of the organization's time and expenses may go toward legislative activities. You may need to file a form with the IRS to disclose these expenditures, and depending on how much was spent, it is possible that you may even pay an excise tax. For our final flag, this is a situation that you need to be very careful with. Say that a candidate for city council wants to speak at your membership meeting and try to collect contributions. In general, if a candidate running for election or re-election wants to speak at one of your meetings, a similar opportunity needs to be offered to all candidates for that position. Some organizations provide candidate forums as an educational event for their community, which can be fine, but it has to be done properly. The organization must make it very clear that they're not endorsing any candidate, and you really can't allow any of the candidates to collect contributions at any of your meetings or events. Please contact us if you have any questions about political activity. Thanks for checking out today's quick tip. Please visit our website, communitylaw.org, to see our workshops, more quick tips, and some helpful publications for nonprofits. You can also sign up to speak with an attorney for free up to 45 minutes. Or if you're ready for legal assistance, you can download our applications for services to become a client. Thank you. Take care.